knowing your why, like what is your core reason of doing what you do, that's going to get you through. Like that's your light at the end of the funnel, so you can keep trucking through it, through the muck, to get to the good stuff. So.
Hey, Drake, how did you figure out how to price your artwork?
That's always a good one, and one I get a lot of questions about all the time. Um, so at first, honestly, I was just kind of rolling the dice. Let's just be real. I was just guessing kind of what I thought my art was worth. Um, this was like in the very, very beginning. And again, because I had another job anyways, I didn't actually need the money from my artwork itself to pay the bills. My other job was already paying the bills. Um, so I didn't have to make that much money from it, right? And this is something that happens to, a lot of folks if they're straddling the two. However, what I ended up doing is taking my business background because I can never get away from it. I did a spreadsheet. Surprise! I love spreadsheets. Surprise! Some artists love spreadsheets and databases. That's neat. Left brained all the way. Not all the way. Very left brain. So on the spreadsheet, to kind of give you a little more detail with it, those artists that I selected, they didn't necessarily have to be in North Carolina either. I picked from different parts of the state. I didn't go for just New York City or LA type artists because honestly, their pricing is going to be a little bit different than what it is in the rest of the United States. And even coastal versus, inland is going to be different. But I kind of did a selection, and I also wanted to make sure that the artists I was looking at weren't in, oh, Andy Warhol, not only long dead, but his stuff is worth millions. Like that's not relevant to what I do. So I looked at artists that were a little bit farther ahead than me in terms of career. So if I was emerging, I would look at someone that maybe was like more at an intermediate level, right? Kind of like what pricing do I want to aspire to? And then on this spreadsheet, I had like different sizes of art, of canvases, and I looked up what people were charging for those, right? And then I basically averaged out, I think I did like 14 artists. You don't need 14 artists for the record, that was overkill. But I kind of did 14 artists and then figured out how much they were charging per square inch. So with pricing, there's a lot of different ways to price. I price per square inch. It makes it the easiest thing in my brain because it detaches. This painting took 6 hours. This painting took 36 hours to complete. But they're the same size. I'm not gonna charge you 5 billion times more for the one that took me longer when they're the same size. Now some artists charge like that. That doesn't work for me personally. I would like to have a formula, which I do, depending on the size category, where if somebody says, how much is that painting you just finished that you haven't even priced yet? I can go, what size is it? Boom, boom. This is how much it is. We're done. Like it just simplifies things for me and it makes it easier for me to have two different paintings next to each other without the question of how much is which or why are they different, even though they're the same size. I don't want to, no, that's too much. It's too much brain space to deal with and too many questions that can come out of that. So I'm like, square inch, we're done. It's easy. And then usually around January every year, I reevaluate my pricing. That's the dead season anyways for us, for a lot of visual artists anyways. Well, in retail and just business in general, because everybody already spent their money for the holidays. So that's when I reevaluate my pricing and then determine, does my square inch pricing need to go up or stay where it's at for a little longer? So, yeah.
So, what was your biggest hurdle in your career so far, if you have one?
Oh, we all do. Whoever tells you they don't have a hurdle, I don't know. Unicorn. I think the biggest hurdle for me has been finding the balance between the time to do the business side of things, the admin task, if you will, following up on emails and phone calls and putting in, like, pursuing different opportunities and answering calls for art, or even pitching, if I want to work with a company, pitching like an event or something like that, balancing that with the time. Actually, it's three pieces that are being balanced. So that's the business side. You could say social media is a part of that, but I'm going to separate it for purposes of our discussion. Time to create content that needs to go on social media, um, to create it, to edit it, to post it, to interact with it, and then the time for making the art itself. I mean, those are three extremely important parts of the process. And trying to balance the time for each of those, it's honestly, that's the biggest challenge.
So how did you get to the point where you were able to make time for each of those and still be creative?
When I what I try to do is, when I'm in art making mode, I basically shut the other two out of my brain. Because if I'm thinking about the business side, then unhelpful thoughts like, would this sell? Will this be popular? Will this get likes? Will this, like, those kind of vanity type things, or let's not just call it vanity. There's a validation aspect to it. And as humans, we like validation. That's the end of that, like, nature. Um, but if I'm focused on that, then I lose focus on the art itself. And I need, when I'm in that art making process, whether it's painting or I'm creating something with my hands, I need to shut all that out and hyper focus specifically on what I'm creating and what kind of story I want to tell through it, or what kind of feeling I want the person that's holding it or looking at it, what I want to transmit through it, what kind of energy do I want to have it flow through. So if I'm thinking of social media or newsletter, or I have to make my sales taxes or whatever it is, other kind of things, it disrupts the flow, and that's not good. And then the painting ends up, or the piece ends up flat, and I don't like it. And it's just like, I lose track essentially. And then it's really hard to get back into it. And some of them just end up getting painted over. So I'm like, I lost the thread of what I was going with on this one, and it's gone.
What gets you through the tough times?
Ridiculous, never-ending passion for what I do. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. It's like that, the art, creating the art, knowing also that the art isn't just for me, the process is for me, but the resulting piece is for somebody else, and it's my job as a business, like, business and as an artist, to find who that piece belongs to. That piece will bring joy to somebody else, will bring them respite, will, maybe it's an aesthetic thing for them, that's fine too. But my thing is like, okay, I have to have that light at the end of the tunnel, because there are times, as with any career, and especially with a small business, I am a small business owner. There are times in the career where, I mean, things get really tough, and you go like, last month I had a great month. This month I haven't sold anything. How am I going to pay my studio rent? I need materials. Like, I don't want to dip into savings for this. Like, or I need to reinvest, in my business by taking this educational program. How much do I have to sell to be able to afford that? Like, yeah, that is a lot. So when those kind of complications come into play, knowing your why, like what is your core reason of doing what you do, that's going to get you through. Like, that's your light at the end of the funnel. So you can keep trucking through it, through the muck, to get to the good stuff. So, yeah. And doing that Ikigai exercise we talked about earlier, that's where it comes in. That's how you know
That's
that there's no question about your why. You know your why once you go through an exercise like that. There are other similar ones, but that's the one that works for me. Yeah.
speaking of that, I think I do actually remember doing that in school at one point, because once you described it, it sounded very familiar, and I said, "Oh, that I think I did do that at some point in my life. I forgot when, why, and for what it was, but I think something like that we did do." So.
Yeah, there's that one and another one I've talked about before, probably in other podcast episodes, that I thought was also impactful, and I went through it, although it might sound a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit rougher for some people to deal with, is the obituary exercise. So you basically write your own obituary as if you died today. And basically, the idea behind it is for you to reevaluate where you are in your life, your personal career, your legacy, kind of look at the different points. And if somebody was reading your eulogy, what they say about you. So that's another powerful exercise. Again, it's a little bit tough because a lot of people struggle with the concept of death in the first place, and it's kind of taboo and they don't want to think about it. Which is why I like Ikigai better anyways. It's a little more digestible and a little bit clearer in terms of like what boxes can I check to get to that middle, right? The core of it, and then decide what to do. But the obituary one is a good one too. Just like what do you actually want to do? Everybody's time is limited. So I learned this from, random story, but I learned this from an Irish guy that was down in Cayman selling sausages in a shop that only sold sausages. Anyways, super random story. Anyways, this guy had had a lot of businesses with his brother over the years, and he's a little on the older bit of things, lots of experience. And one of the things that he said that I thought was really striking too was, he said, when you work for somebody else, you're exchanging time units, life units for money. There's nothing wrong with working for somebody else. Just make sure you're getting the right amount of money for the bits of life that you're trading in exchange. He's like, everybody has a limited number of time units. So how much are you getting? And is it worth it? And it was just like, and it was early on when I talked to him. It was, I don't know, I had made the decision to switch to art about a month or two prior. So, I mean, that just hit the nail on the head right there, like bullseye, like, wow. I mean, he's right. We all have limited time. We don't know how much it is. And you're trading time for money. So is it worth it? And a lot of times the answer is yes. Yes, it is. And if you like what you do, you're not going to care. They don't even have to pay you, and you're going to do it anyways. But it has to be worth it. Time is limited. Not to be FOMO about it, but time is limited. So what are you going to do with your life?
Yeah. The one currency you cannot get back is time.
Correct. It expires. Has an expiration date. Yeah. So I know that went grim fast, but it's the truth. It's the truth of the matter. It's the reality of it. We're not vampires, so that I know of. I don't know about you, but I'm not. So
knowledge, through and through, to my knowledge. So now, for our guests, we like to ask some specific questions and go over one specific topic. A word or phrase that makes you great.
This is something that's come from other people. Because for me to think about it myself, it's just kind of like, I don't know, it feels egocentric. I'm gonna go with that. So I crowdsourced this answer. Let's go with that. Radiating optimism is what I'm going with. Almost everywhere I've worked, someone will say you're like a ray of sunshine, on a cloudy day, and you're just coming through. And it's contagious in the best positive way, and you're always smiling and cracking jokes and like, saying like, how you doing? And, just like trying to get people's spirits up. And apparently I've done that forever, seems like. So yeah, I'm gonna go with radiating optimism. And now it's not blinders, don't get me wrong. I will always recognize the situation itself and be like, hey, not everything in life is great and hunky-dory. It's not rainbows, and unicorns. We all go through stuff. But to me, optimism is that sense of like recognizing where you are and then moving forward, finding a way to move forward, finding that silver lining, holding onto it for dear life, and take another step and get out. Like, get out of the muck and just keep pushing. That's all we can. Can't get stuck, man. Can't get stuck.
Got it. I think we all need, if we're not that person ourselves, that light of energy that is in our presence or in our room, so we can just keep going and just have a better day sometimes, because you never know what you're going through, what somebody else is going through. So if you're that for somebody, or you are that person, then that's could be one of your services of the world.
Yeah,
Just that.
yeah. And it doesn't mean I don't have days where I'm like, mad and sad and angry and all the feels. We all go through that. But to me, it's been a motto. I don't know if it's the right word, but we're going to go with it. Early on, I think it was in the seventh grade, I read this poem that talked about random acts of kindness. And one of the lines in the poem is also, it's actually like, smile even at strangers and let that smile fall like a ray of sunshine wherever they go. It's like spreading the positivity. And why wouldn't you? Like, why? Because you don't know them. You never know. They could be a friend. They could be a family friend. Like, just be kind to other humans. It costs you nothing. So it was kind of like that idea of like, yeah, spread smiles, spread positivity. Like, I've always been big into it, at least since I was a kid. So it's the superpower, I guess.
Maybe. Cool. What is your brand?
My brand is essentially, maybe brand is not the word I want to use. I'm gonna go with story. Let's go with that. My story is essentially that I am a Puerto Rican artist living in the States, living in the South, which comes with its own set of challenges, right? And I am trying to spread optimism through art. That's really what I'm all about. I want people to get that positive energy from it and, end up smiling. And like a lot of people come to my, studio and they'll be like, it's so colorful and cheerful and vibrant. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I want you to get. I want you to feel that cheerful energy. Like, yes, that's it. Because if you feel it and you end up smiling at it, guess what? You're going to be that person that's smiling at the gas station attendant, who then smiles at a customer, who then smiles at someone else at the pump, who then smiles at their boss, at work. Like, you never know how that just spreads out. So I'm like, yep, we're gonna spread it through the art. That's the way I know how to do it, and that's what we're gonna do.
All
At
right.
least that's the current mission. You never know down the road, but yep, so we're going with that.
Spreading your energy through your art. Spreading
Mm-hmm.
positive energy through your art.
Positive energy, positive vibes only, as they say.
All right. What would be a lucrative tip that you would give somebody that may want to be where you are, or just in general about life?
You said lucrative
Yeah.
money?
No, not as far as, if you wanted to be about money, sure, but as far as lucrative tip meaning a necessary tip from your point of view, from what you experienced so far in life or in your career path.
And they want to be in a position similar to where I am.
It could be that, or just in life in general.
Okay. I would have to say definitely know your why. Definitely be consistent and have conviction in what you're doing, what you're on this earth for. And if you don't know what that is, reevaluate where you're at and find out. If any of the listeners are on the younger end of the spectrum, this is going to be a little bit harder because you need life experience to be able to objectively figure out where you're going. But the good thing is, if you're on the younger side of the spectrum, is you have time. You actually have time to change your mind, to figure out, to test things out. Especially if you don't have the same kind of financial responsibilities that we were talking about. You have time. to kind of experiment. If you already do have family and other, financial obligations and whatnot, it's never too late. My answer would be it's never too late to figure out, look back at your life experiences from childhood all the way to the point you're at now, and ask yourself, what are you actually so passionate about that you would do it anyways, even if nobody paid you? And you can't shut up about it, and you absolutely love it, and it's your happy place. And is there a way that, going back to the whole ikigai, like, is this thing that you're so passionate about, it just comes off your pores? Does it fit the diagram, or can you make it fit the diagram somehow, and then hold on to that for dear life, and then pursue it? Just go. I mean, you might have to make some sacrifices, you might have to make some adjustments, you might not be able to pursue it full time, and that's a reality of it, depending what your social economical situation is. But what's the point of living life if you're not pursuing what you're here to do? I mean, I just got to a point where I'm like, my life purpose isn't to work in an investment environment with folks that are already privileged to make more money. Like, I was like, that's not, and yes, I'm helping people through it, don't get me wrong, supporting a team that supports other people in great decisions. And there was a lot of good stuff in it, don't get me wrong. It's not like it wasn't an icky job or anything. It was actually nice and I enjoyed it. But it wasn't what I was here for. Or at least that's my conviction, and that's my reality, is I don't feel like I'm here on this earth to work a corporate job. Or retail, for that matter, or any of those, I'm here to spread a message of optimism through art. That's it. I gotta hold on to that. That's what I got.
Okay.
Yep.
Fair. That's a fair point.
Just find what you're made for. Just find what you're here for, and then just do it. In small measures, big measures, however you can, but do it. It'll fill your soul. Maybe fill's not the right word. Feel. Let's go with feel. Fuel your soul. Live a purposeful, soul-powered life. Let's just go with that. Go woo-woo for a second. But no, seriously, if you're doing what you're absolutely and extremely passionate about, it rubs off on other people. And whatever that may look like for them, it may inspire them to follow their path as well. Whatever that may look like.
I believe that everyone on this earth has a gift that they can monetize off of. It's great that you found yours. I'm finding mine, finding mine. And it doesn't have to be just one either. You could do multiple things that you're good or great at.
Yeah. And you can find related things that still pay the bills, even if they're not exactly what you want it to be. So it could be something, like talking to an artist the other day, we were like discussing different career paths, and it's like, perhaps you work retail and you want to be an artist, right? But maybe instead of working at a clothing store, you work at an art store. At least that's more closely related to what you want to do. You want to be a musician. Okay, so maybe you work at the music store as your retail job that helps pay the bills. That's still way closer to what you want to do. Still pays the same than that other job that you were doing anyways, working at McDonald's. I don't know. Actually, it probably pays better. But then on top of that, you have the community of people that you belong to already, or that you want to be a part of, as your customer base. Like, it's a win-win-win if you think about it. Or maybe it's at a corporate level. Okay, sure. Well, can you work at the company where it's, again, a little bit closer to what you want to do? So maybe if you're at a corporate level, you work for a record label. You know what I mean? Like, you can find ways to, if you can't make your number one thing the job that pays the bills, then find a job that's close to it, as close to it as you can get, take your skills, which are transferable no matter what you do, and try to get as close as you can. And if you don't have the skills, learn them. It'll take time. It's not overnight, but get closer in alignment to what it is you're supposed to do, or that you're so passionate about you won't shut up about it. Like, find a way to get there and figure it out. It might take time. It might take talking to a lot of people, but you can do it. As long as you're breathing, you can make progress towards it. But if you stop, can't expect to be discovered overnight. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta work towards it. It's artwork for a reason. It is work. So
Yeah. Moral of the story, you have time and don't stop. Because if you do,
don't stop.
you won't get to where you want to be.
Yeah, you'll be a working zombie, essentially. You'll be a zombie human. I've met so many especially in corporate environments. They're just coasting and paycheck's good and the job is like easy or manageable at least. And the question is like, what are you left to do? And they got nothing. I love my job. Well, do you actually? No, not really. Okay, so what do you actually want to do? I don't know. I guess I'll figure it out when I'm retired. And I'm like, I don't have time for that. I don't know how long I'm going to be on this earth. I'm not waiting till I'm retired to find what I actually want to do. Like, you hear so many people doing like second, third, fourth careers, especially, once they've been in an industry for a long time. And I'm like, I'm not waiting 40 years to switch. Yeah, pretty sure I'm probably going to die with a hand brush and like a paintbrush in my hand. And I'm good with that.
Ask is looking like
she was 86 years old and collapsed in front of the easel. Yes, good way to go. Hopefully painless. But yeah, it's like, yeah, if you cringe at the thought of staying where you are for another 20 years, reevaluate. What do you actually want to do?
the story of most people's lives. What you actually want to do if you haven't found out already.
Yeah, and it may feel selfish at first. I went through that of like, is it selfish for me to try to pursue my own happiness? And the answer is no. Your family, your loved ones, everybody around you will benefit from you actually pursuing what you want. For a lot of people, they'll be a little less angry with the rest of humanity if they actually stop complaining or being angry about their job or not liking their situation, but then not doing anything about it. It's like, if you don't like it, change it. If you can't change it, we'll make steps towards it. It might not be overnight, but don't bring everybody else down because you're in a crappy situation you put yourself in. Get out. Get help. Ask for help. But yeah. Sorry, I'm like, I get soapboxy about this one. I'm like, no, wake up, get out of there.
Fine, I get it.
Yeah. And I don't want to sound like, also, like, I know I've been using corporate as an example because that's the world I came from. I've done retail too. I would say the same thing. For some folks, that is the answer, and that is where they find happiness. So I don't want to come off anti-corporate. Not everybody's going to have the interest, the time, the resources, or the skills to try to go off on their own, right, and do their own business and things like that. So I'm definitely not saying quit what you're doing kind of thing. It's more like, no, find what you love and then find how to work at what you love, whether you work for somebody else or yourself. It doesn't matter. The biggest thing is like, find what you love, work towards there. And you'll be a much happier person, honestly. You'll be so much happier. Your mental health is going to improve because of it, especially if you've had any issues. Not that I can diagnose anything, but personal experience, art is therapy. A lot of people will repeat that too, and it's true. Whether it's art, music, whatever that looks like for you, maybe it's spreadsheets, coding, I don't know, whatever it is. But yeah, you gotta work towards it.
Appreciate you, Adriana, for being on this podcast, and please let the people know where they can find you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been delightful to have this conversation with you. Folks can find me over at Instagram. I'm at Ameigh Art, and sure you will write the spelling of that on the show notes. And my website is the same, Ameigh Art. That's what I use for all my different platforms. So feel free to connect there. If any of the listeners are on LinkedIn, feel free to connect with me there too. It's just Adriana Ameigh, so you can find me there as well. But yeah, it's been awesome.
All right. And appreciate y'all for listening to the Two and a Half LLCs podcast. If you want to find the podcast, it's on Instagram. We're at 212 LLCS pod POD. That's us on Instagram. And on all streaming platforms, we are 2 space 1/2 LLCs podcast on all podcasting platforms, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you listen to podcasts. We are there. And if you want to follow me, Dre, you can follow me on Instagram at RETROD.R.E. We appreciate y'all for being here and like the video, because when you do, you will become greater. Follow and all that great stuff, because once you do, you will become greater. And you have at least 2.5 lucrative tips you have gained from this, hopefully. If you don't, well, until next time.
Thank you so much, Gray.